It's cleared all along the eastern coast of the United States. Remember, it's not just what the weather's like around Cape Canaveral and the Cocoa Beach area, but 1,100 miles up the eastern coast. So we're following that. We'll be talking to the significance of this with the likes of Charlie Duke. One of 12 men to walk the surface of the moon. He'll be joining us, Jim Bidenstein, the NASA administrator, on why he says this particular mission is so crucial. And Tracy Cernan, the last name should ring a bell. She holds some really crucial space history, if you will. Her dad, the last man to walk on the moon, Gene Cernan, it etched her initials on the lunar surface. There was even a rock dedicated to her on that surface by an astronaut sometime earlier. We're all going to be all over that. But first to Phil Keating on what could be coming up in about 21 minutes. Phil.
Yeah, we are exactly 20 minutes and 55 seconds away from liftoff. The astronauts, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, are strapped in. The hatch is closed and sealed. The crew access arm has been pulled away from the Crew Dragon capsule. And the weather gods are, well, playing along. Everything is a go at this point, technically as well as weather. The skies have totally cleared up. It's blue skies here after a couple of rounds of rain. And the last cumulus cloud SpaceX and NASA were worried about is now long gone. The Falcon 9 rocket, Dragon, and capsule are out there stacked, fueling up on Launch Pad 39A. Officially, this historic launch is a go, but the weather forecast at 3:22 has to be perfect, and right now it looks as if it will. Astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken walked out of the same doors the Apollo astronauts who flew to the moon at noon Eastern. They then rode in their sleek Teslas out to the launch pad and have been sitting inside the capsule for about 2.5 hours now, checking all the systems via their state-of-the-art touchscreens. The Air Force's 45th Weather Squadron provides the meteorological analysis for launch criteria, cloud issues, rain issues, and sea states downrange. And it says it can wait all the way until 30 seconds from launch time to rule a no-go. Now, and here is NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine.
We look back into the 1960s and we see the war in Vietnam and the protests, not just at the nation's capital, but across the country at universities. We see the injustice. We see the protests. And here we are today. We are on the cusp of launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil for the first time since the retirement of the space shuttles back in 2011. This, I think, has not just an opportunity to give everybody a moment to unite, but also to give people hope.
Just like for Wednesday's scrubbed launch, tens of thousands of people have again flocked to the coast for this first launch of astronauts on an American rocket from Florida in nearly a decade. Here's a live look at the crowd on Cocoa Beach right now, aiming for a twofer, enjoying the sand and surf and a bright and loud rocket launch. There's also a bunch of people across the water over at Titusville, and there's a big bridge there that is just jam-packed with people right now. President Trump and Vice President Pence, as well as their wives, are on the ground here at Kennedy Space Center. Air Force One and the Vice President's plane landed a little while ago. This is the first time, that's why they want to see it. First time we're launching Americans from Florida again in nearly a decade, and this is really space history. First time a private space company is launching human beings into orbit, and that's why this mission is being called Launch American. No more reliance on the Russians if everything goes well on this test flight. Again, launch time 3:22 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is in just less than 18 minutes from now. Neil, it's exciting.
All right, Phil, thank you very much. Phil Keating following all of that here. You might hear reference to that this is Crew Dragon versus when you hear a lot of talk about Cargo Dragon. All the other SpaceX rockets that have launched back and forth to the International Space Station, and it's ferrying supplies system 20 times. That was considered cargo, so Cargo Dragon. So you'll hear Crew Dragon because the big differentiator this time is there are human beings on board, 2 of them. It can hold as many as 7. This is the same vehicle that is planned later on to get us to the moon, or be a big contribution to that in just a few years from now. But obviously, this is a first crucial test. Weather will play a role, as we've been reporting. Adam Klotz with the latest on that. Adam, how's it looking?
Neil, it's still not a guarantee. Now, there are no big weather systems that we're concerned about, but it's Florida, it's hot, it's steamy, and you can see thunderstorms pop up in 5 or 10 minutes. So that's going to be something to pay attention to over the next 15 minutes until eventually this launch happens. I do want to show you there have been some pop-up thunderstorms up and down the Space Coast here for the last several hours. Take a look at your forecast maps and you'll see, even though most of those are now moving just farther south of Cape Canaveral, storms are still going to be an issue in that particular area. Currently, you're sitting at 87 degrees, a heat index of 94 degrees. So it's hot, it's humid. That's what it takes to pop up those thunderstorms really quick. Winds south-southeast at 10 miles an hour. Now, that's way below the threshold you would need to scrub anything in this particular situation. So the launch forecast, this is what we looked at over the course of today. Obviously, we've seen those thunderstorms pop up off and on over the last several hours. We are getting a little bit of a break here, and that is good news. Another concern anytime you talk about this is going to be lightning. A lightning strike within half an hour of the launch time, within 10 miles of the launch site. That's enough to scrub one of these, and right now you're seeing a whole bunch of lightning strikes there just south of Melbourne. Now, the good news of this is that particular cell that's been causing that lightning strikes, that's drifting to the south, so that's not a concern. But there's still a couple of cells moving along the coast there. Any one of those could strengthen here in the next couple of minutes. It's going to be something we have to watch. I do think, in general, this looks like a pretty good forecast if we're only talking another 10 minutes out. But heaven forbid, if this were to get scrubbed in the next few minutes, this is the forecast for tomorrow at 3 p.m. It's better, a smaller chance of rain, but it's Florida, it's summer, Neil. As I get ready to toss it back to you, it's hot, it's steamy. So it's always a possibility you get those pop-up thunderstorms. So no big system to pay attention to, but thunderstorms are still something we're going to have to watch in the next few minutes.
Yeah, I like the way you describe it. It is Florida. It's the summer. It's hot. It's muggy. It's all of that brings all this type of weather. But it is what it is. We'll see if they find that window. And again, as Adam was touching on, that's important when you look about these storms over in the Melbourne area. You want to be along a northward trajectory here. So they're to the south, and you can go ahead along that 1,100-mile radius all the way up the East Coast. And that looks okay. That's all they need to hear. By the way, we talk about these two astronauts. They're experiencing mission delays. Both have had their share of them. When we talk about, Hurley and what he's been through, it's amazing. I was reading this, that in the shuttle Endeavour, that was scrubbed 5 times. He was on that mission, and it was delayed for over a month between technical and weather difficulties. So let's just say that, he knows a thing or two about, launches that are postponed. More than 6 out of 10 usually are, sometimes with only minutes to spare. So hopefully that will be avoided. Another fellow who knows it well, American hero in his own right, one of only 12 human beings to walk the surface of the moon, Charlie Duke, the Apollo 16 astronaut. Charlie, honored to have you this day especially. What do you think of the fact that we're back in this and that if all goes well, for the first time in close to a decade, we're launching our guys into space and not hitching rides with the Russians?
I'm very excited, Neil. It's really a tremendous opportunity for us, and everybody is excited about it. And I think we're going to go today, and so I'm just ecstatic.
Now, what about the role of private enterprise? We talk about Elon Musk and SpaceX, and the fact that even for these two astronauts, they're military test pilots by training. They know how to work with a stick, a joystick, whatever you have it. But these are big old screens that look like a very elaborate decked-out Tesla. They've had time to work on that, but it's an adjustment, right?
Well, it must be. Of course, they've had hours and hours in the simulator, I'm sure, and they're used to these touch screens. We didn't have any of that in Apollo, but so we had to get used to what we had, and they've used what they have. They're focused. They know how to operate the spacecraft, and I'm very excited about this private government sponsorship and partnership. And I think it's going to be a great future for us. I'm really excited about today.
I had the pleasure of talking to Walter Cunningham, the lunar module pilot on Apollo 7. And, he's always a frank, salt-to-the-earth guy. He said, look, I'm happy we're back. I like what's going on here. He kind of winced a little bit. I don't want to put words in his own, hero mouth here. That the fact that, business is running this and that they're, watching the cost and doing all of that. I always thought that was the case. NASA wasn't oblivious to cost, and NASA itself is a consortium of private companies all funding the same venture. But what do you think of that? That for some of the veterans, This is a whole new world, and you know, it's a profit and loss world. It is what it is.
That's true. I talked to Walt yesterday, but we didn't discuss this. I was not a for-profit enterprise at first, but then I changed my mind quickly and said I'm very excited about it. It's a great partnership. NASA's never built anything. We've always hired private companies to do it. The difference being our designs, and then now they have their designs, and they came to NASA and says, this is what we want to buy. And everybody said, NASA said, yeah, we'd like to buy that. And so here we are. And it's exciting to me.
Now, this will pave the way. This is a test flight, but this will pave the way eventually to getting back to the moon where you were, establishing, you know, a base there, and from there we launch to the stars and Mars and what have you. Are you confident of that layout and that plan?
I'm a little skeptical about Mars, but I think Moon is the next objective, and we can build a space station on the Moon to be very, very valuable scientifically and for learning how to live in deep space, in gravity, for a long time. So I'm all for the moon flights. I think we'll have to press to get there on schedule, but it can be done. We built a lunar module from almost from scratch on Apollo in 5 or 6 years, so we can do it.
You know, the Chinese are already there. In fact, if you look at the countries that are venturing into space, China spends more than all of them combined, ourselves and the Russians. I was startled to read that. And I'm wondering what you make of that. Obviously, tense relations between ourselves and the Chinese today. What do you think of their space missions?
Well, I was in China with Charlie Bolden right after the first taconaut came home, and got to meet him, and I'm impressed. I think they're using a lot of technology that they didn't invent or build at home. They built it at home, but it was our technology. So that's given them a good head start on us, and apparently their economy can afford it. So we'll see. I think yeah, go ahead.
No, I just jumped at you. Charlie, I wanted to thank you. More to the point, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it was a real honor having you on. You are a hero. I didn't know if you knew this, Charlie, but Gene Cernan made me an honorary astronaut by giving me a pin, so I feel that we're on the same league here talking about this. In my dreams, I might add. But Charlie Duke, thank you for some great space memories, and heroic ones at that.
Thank you very much, Neil.
All right, be well. You could tell he was impressed with the fellow astronaut thing. But he's a real McCoy here. We are looking at this as we take a look at what's in store for NASA now, assuming this goes off, and then everything is really ready here. This would be an attempt not only for private enterprise to do what public institutions have done. The fact of the matter is, it starts right now. We are going to pause for one moment to let our Fox stations join us.
Starting TC hydraulic press.
This is Fox News coverage of SpaceX launching the first manned U.S. space flight in nearly 10 years. I'm Neil Cavuto, and what's getting the attention right now is we are a little more than 7.5 minutes away from something we've not done for the better part of a decade. Launch our own men and women into space, in this case, 2 men, veterans who've done this many, many times before. Between the 2 of them, 4 times, if you include their astronaut spouses, close to 8 times. They know a thing or two about being up there a long time, too. Doug Wheelock is with us right now, NASA astronaut. He was on the International Space Station twice, holds among the records for time in space, kind enough to join us right now. So, Doug, you're looking at those clouds, and you've been in this same position. What do you make of the vagaries of Mother Nature? You know what it's like to be ready, and all of a sudden they pull something. So far, so good there, but what do you sort of think of all this?
Well, great to be with you, Neil. And of course, we've been waiting 9 years to get back to flying humans to space from the Space Coast. And we have to remember, we have to take the good with the bad. If we remember back on the shuttle days, we had a lot of rain delays and things like that, and so weather is always an issue there on the Florida coast. But it's looking good today, and we're very excited to get this mission off.
You're looking at President Trump right now. He is with the Vice President to watch on the deck of the Operations and Support Building 2. It's about 3 miles away from Launch Pad 39A. And Doug, that's a famous launch pad, to put it mildly. This viewing site, a famous one as well. About 39A and the significance of that. What do you think?
Well, 39A is the same pad that we launched Apollo 11 from. So the mission that went to the moon, the first giant leap back to the moon or onto the moon, launched from 39A. Also, our shuttle missions went from there. When I got a chance to launch on the Space Shuttle Discovery, I went from that very same launch pad. So it's got a lot of history and a lot of mystique about the Cape there. So we're very excited.
Now, the president's vantage point here and what he wants to see from here, he's aggressively been promoting space travel. He thinks that we can get that back again. I don't know necessarily if the heady days of John F. Kennedy and laying out a goal of landing a man on the moon before the decade was out, because when he was saying it, we were a long way from looking like we could reasonably get off the launch pad. Different kind of incentives today. Where do you think all this goes?
Well, I remember President Kennedy saying, we choose to go to the moon and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. So right now we're seeing the other things. You know, this is where we've laid down an exciting vision for NASA, where we can go as a spacefaring nation. And we've laid out all the specification and requirements to our commercial enterprise. And then we're getting out of the way and letting the imagination and the curiosity of the human mind and the imagination of the human heart really carry us to heights we've never dreamed of before.
You know, Doug, there's so many interesting features of this capsule, this Dragon capsule, and the fact that it can jettison away if the astronauts need safety up into almost orbit. And I find that stunning. What do you think of that system in place? You know, God forbid.
It's absolutely, it's been put through its paces. We've tested it. They can actually eject off the launch pad as well, Neil. So they're protected. The astronaut crews are protected all the way to orbit. They have a way to get off this rocket and abort if they need to. So that's a real advance in technology for us.
All right, we already know now at this time stage 1 and 2 fuel loading is complete. So it's ready to go. At this point, 3.5 minutes before launch, what are you thinking? You've been there, done that. What are you thinking?
So up until this time, Doug and Bob got strapped in about 2.5 hours ago, and there's probably some light joking, maybe some Trivial Pursuit going on. But now it's go time, and so they are completely focused. And it is a test flight. And the ice water is running through their veins right now. They're focused, and I sent a note to them late last night, and I know that they will be. They're focused, they're alert, and they're ready for the ride of their lives.
And again, you talk about that jettison feature, but just to be familiar with it, who activates that? The astronauts can, but the NASA administrator can, a host of other key players can. Who has control of that, if it should be necessary?
Well, there is a launch control group that's controlling the launch, and so they can fire that escape system. There's also an automated system that it senses that the vehicle needs to get off. That can also light it within certain parameters, and the crew can do that as well.
Doug, thank you very much, and thank you for your incredible and memorable heroic service to the world and those who dream of leaving this planet. And thinking about the majesty of all of that, and you did so calmly. I always remember the stories on you that it took a lot to rattle you. In fact, they never could. So, Doug Wheelock, thank you very, very much. We're following a couple of things here. This is all about timing. Assuming this goes off okay in less than 2 minutes, it's all about catching up with the International Space Station that's traveling north of 17,000 miles an hour, about 249 miles over planet Earth. So that's the idea, that 19-hour catch-up to hook up with that. Let's go to NASA at Cape Canaveral and hear the countdown and the readiness, as we are now about a minute away.